Emile Steenveld, thank you so much for joining us on the Thoughts and Purpose podcast. It is a privilege to have you here, my man.
Thank you for having me, mate. It's a pleasure.
Of course, guys. So if you don't know Emile is a transformational speaker and coach. Emile was just sharing with me that he is preparing for his new Elevate event in London. Am I correct in saying that, Emile?
No, actually, this one's going to be in Bali.
In Bali, okay. I thought
Yes.
There something coming up in London?
Yeah, so we had it in London and we ended up switching it back to Bali, and purely because we are known for doing great events in Bali.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because the Elevate event, the way we've structured it, it's like it's not going to be the same if we did it in London.
Interesting. Yeah, well,
you
you created some amazing content off that last Elevate event in Bali. Yeah. And what an experience for people. Like I saw, you're obviously doing a lot of adventure training and a lot of experiencing the surroundings and the environment and getting out in nature. Yeah. And I was kind of curious when I heard it was in London. I was like, how is it going to work out? So that's really cool. That's awesome. Yeah. And so you live in Bali at the moment, don't you now?
Yeah. So I've been living here around 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's gone really fast as well.
Wow. And so where were you born, Emile?
I was born and raised in Melbourne, Australia.
Oh, okay. There you go. Yep.
Yes. But my parents are from Cape Town.
Yeah.
South Africa.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So Emile, I loved how when we were kind of preparing for this and just, scheduling this all in, you sent me a message and you were so determined to add value to people. You're like, let's make sure we're really creating something of value. And that totally resonates with me, mate. Guys, I just want to tell you about Emile quickly because I had the privilege of being with Emile on a call when Emile was there as the expert delivering a training for us. And the standout thing about you, Emile, is I remember how present you were. And I remember that you went around every single one of the participants on that call and you really met them where they're at. And I've heard that that's a trait of great leaders, that they are able to meet people where they're at and they're able to lead them to where they want to go. And I remember you were going through the people and I was excited. I was like, it's going to be my turn in a minute. And you delivered. I remember you got me to share a bit of my story and you straight away were like, that wasn't from the heart. And you got me to refine it. And I shared a bit of the story that I didn't usually share. And you're like, that was it. I felt that. Yeah. And I just felt so free. Like you just had that ability to really, meet me where I was at and also guide me to where I needed to go in such a powerful way. So I'm excited for what we're going to create in this time together. So thanks for the way you show up, man. And I appreciate you being here today so much.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. I really do.
Absolutely. So
I'm glad we can come on and really jam on this.
Same, man. Well, the two topics we are going to be jamming on today, particularly, are going to be around supercharging your confidence and also dealing with people's opinions, because this is a big thing. And I specifically wanted to talk about this with you, Emile, because like I said, I guess it goes hand in hand with building self-confidence, but I talk to so many people and being derailed by other people's opinions is a huge thing that comes up. I'm not sure if you experience that much with people, but two topics that I believe are going to add huge amounts of value. So without further ado, let's dive into it. But I'd love for people just to get to know you a bit more, Emile. So could you share a bit of your story? Just of why you were so committed to doing the work you're doing now. You're holding these events around the world. You're coaching people all around the world. You're up to big things. Why are you so committed to doing this work?
Nash, it wasn't, when I think about why I do what I do, it was because I had a story that I wasn't enough. And I was a perfectionist and I was consistently trying to make it always look good. And this is what people don't see. Like, they don't see the backstory and where, the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing today is because it means something to me because I was in that. And, growing up with parents from South Africa, my father was, very traditional South African man, didn't really speak about feelings, didn't really share much. So I had trouble expressing because he had trouble expressing, you know, and we learned from our parents. You know, my mother was actually is actually a psychologist now and has been studying psychology my whole life. So,
Wow.
you know, I had these books around since I was a child, and going deep into like, why do we do what we do? I was always a deep thinker, but I couldn't figure out why I did certain things and why people reacted to me in certain ways. And, you know, when I went to my first self-development course, I actually did it with with my father. And it was the first time I really got to see how I showed up in life. And it was like picture a horse, right? And picture it's got blinkers on. As all of a sudden I had these epiphanies, and boom, it started opening up. And I'm like, holy, I can't believe this is what I've been doing the whole time. And this is why I react like this. And this is why I act like a victim. And this is why I blame. And, you know, and all these things. And it really taught me about responsibility. It taught me about how to take ownership of my feelings and emotions. And when I got a taste of it, Nash, I just wanted to go deeper and deeper into it. I was like, this is amazing. And it was like, you know, you ever had it yourself where you had that first epiphany and you're like, wow, I've been doing this for 15 years and someone just says one thing and you're like, what?
Yep, totally.
So it really taught me about myself. And in my head, I was like, well, I was getting these messages. Like I got so clear with myself, because once you take yourself out of the way, there's free range. Anything's possible. You're the only person stopping yourself. And I know it sounds as cliche as possible, like you're the only one that's in your way, but it really is true. It's like, imagine you trusted yourself fully. Imagine you accepted and embraced all of your dark side as much as you embraced your light side. What would be possible for you? Anything and everything, because you're not held back by your thoughts, your limiting beliefs, your stories, your parents, because you're not looking for the acceptance, approval, or waiting for someone to give you permission. And this is what I was doing my whole life. I was waiting for my father to give me permission.
Wow.
So when I really got that, and I wanted to go deeper into self-development, and I wanted to give people it. I wanted to give them the transformation that I had. And because I was learning it, this is the beautiful thing about transformational coaching and emotional intelligence coaching, is the more you teach it, the more you learn it. The more you learn it, the more you practice it. The more you practice it, the more you can just keep on growing and going deeper and deeper, and your life becomes effortless, and you catch it instead of it catching you. Wow. So, you know, this journey's been, it's nonstop. It's nonstop. I'm still going through it. I went through it last weekend in Singapore.
That's amazing. That's phenomenal. And so, just first of all, how old were you when you went to that event, Emile?
I was 21.
Okay, right.
No, sorry, 23. Because I just got back from Hong Kong. I just did my first modeling stint overseas, and I came back and I did that course. So I did that course, and then I did that with my dad, and we had massive breakthroughs, even with our relationship. And then I ended up doing the advanced course and did it with my mum, and it went even bigger. So just to do it with my parents was phenomenal.
That's amazing. I love that. Yeah. How powerful too, because so many of the challenges people have are picked up from their parents. It's like we are given so many of the things our parents didn't deal with in some ways. They get passed to us. And so I can only imagine that's quite amazing. So you were saying that you were waiting for your dad to give you permission or acceptance. Did that happen in that event, did you feel?
It didn't actually. It happened when I decided to give myself permission.
Excellent.
I was doing the Camino de Santiago in the south. It's a pilgrimage, right?
Okay, yes.
And I was with my father, and we walked for 5 weeks. And we walked from the south of France to the west coast of Spain for 5 weeks.
Wow.
You know, and I remember walking, Nash, and I was walking and I was listening to Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth, and, you know, he says in his voice, you're never going to get the consciousness or the acceptance or the approval that you want from your parents. And I was like, anger. Yes. Straight away. I was so angry. I was like, are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
And that was the moment I literally decided, I was like, I'm not going to get it the way I want it. And it hit me, because I was like, well, what am I still seeking from him that I'm not giving to myself?
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment I said, you know what? I'm no longer going to seek approval from him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to accept myself. And what does that look like for me? That means giving myself full permission to do what I want. And the moment I stopped, it was so weird. The moment I stopped doing it, he started showing up even more. He started literally showing up in a way where I was like, huh, because I wasn't expecting it in the way I wanted it. He did it in the way he knew how to.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a difference these days. We're so many of us, we want to get the love, we want to receive it in the way we want it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, give me love, come on. And I want it like this, and it has to be shaped like this, and it has to be in this kind of box, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the way love works, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all love differently.
Mm-hmm.
And when I really took responsibility for how I was showing up in a relationship, our relationship shifted even more. Like, we were already going really well, because obviously I wouldn't have gone on a trip with my father for 5 weeks.
Yeah, I believe that.
But what really taught me is, like, of years of doing the work, was when I fully took responsibility for how I was showing up. I stopped blaming him. He got to show up in his space. And because I accepted myself, we're mirrors.
Mm.
He felt accepted, and our relationship grew organically. And now it's to the point where we can talk about anything. I'm like, there's nothing between us, nothing. Like, I can literally go, hey, this happened, and not be ashamed. And the same for him. He calls me, and he'll literally be like, hey, what do you think about this? And even with his business, which is amazing to have that kind of relationship.
That is so cool. I love that. It's definitely a relationship I'm aspiring to have with my son and daughters, of course. So I'll have to talk to you more about that for sure, about how you've navigated all that and what he did. And so that's really exciting, man. Phenomenal. And so you touched on, you used to be a model.
Yes.
And you were modeling for some pretty big brands there as well, weren't you?
Yeah, for 12 years I was an international model. And it's funny, because we were talking about confidence, and this is exactly how I really learned what real confidence is. Mm-hmm. And, the modeling industry is one of those industries where it's like 95% rejection. And I'll be honest, I was so shit scared of rejection. For a good 3 years, I avoided going into the modeling industry, even when I was asked the first time. I was asked at about 21 or 20 the first time.
Okay. Yes.
And I was like, nah, I'm cool. It's not for me. And it was really because I was scared. I didn't have the courage, and I didn't think I was enough to be a model.
Wow.
And when I finally said yes, I've been approached a few more times. I did a couple of shows, and I was like, wow, that was exhilarating. It was fun. And it was purely because, there's a fine line between fear or nervousness / excitement. And after doing it, I was just ecstatic. It's like you get this epiphany, this rush, this serotonin floods into your system. It's like this whole thing of like, wow, I didn't think I could do that. And I did it. And I was like, cool, but I still didn't jump into it. And then finally I decided, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to do it. But if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go all in. And this is the kind of person I am. If I decide I'm doing it, I'm doing it. Right. And I'm going to do it to the very best I can. And that means so I started training. I stopped partying. I got really focused. I looked up different magazines. It sounds crazy, right? Because, to be the best, you got to find out who the best are. And then you got to copy what they do, and then do it in your own way and do it even better.
Yes.
And, that took me on such a journey. I had no idea it was going to take me on. But it took me from literally starting in Australia to moving to Hong Kong. And I would watch the models, like, who was confident when they come into the room. You had to do castings, and it's like, what's going to be the difference between you and 200 other models? You have to make a connection in 5 seconds. How are they going to remember you? Now, this is the same thing I teach in business and in today when I'm coaching like high-end business people. And I'm like, why are they going to remember you out of all the people? Yeah, okay, you've got accounts, you've got this and this and that, but ultimately it's a relationship, it's a connection. And I made sure, like I was reading books back then on people skills, on how to connect quicker. And I started going deeper into that because I was like, okay, cool. This is what I look like. But that's only a certain amount of the percentage. It's like, how do you show up on a job? Professional? Are you confident? Are your shoulders back, or are you hunched over? And this is the one defining moment when I really started looking at confidence. I was at a casting for Jean-Paul Gaultier, and there was like 100 models in the room in Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, this, to give you an idea, everyone's sitting on the side, and then there's 3 people at the back of the room, and you have to walk and then walk back. And you have to do like 2 walks, and the first walk has to be different than the first one. So everybody's watching, they're all casting you, and then they go, yep, cool, take a picture, and not. If you're not successful, then they go, yep, see you later.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember watching this guy, and he came in and he had presence. And it wasn't like, hey, look at me, but he just had this inner confidence. And this is the thing, Nash, confidence is not loud and boisterous. It's not in your face. It's not, hey, look at me. It's a subtle being. It's like you trust yourself fully, and it naturally just radiates, right? And he walked in and he made eye contact and he said hello to everyone, and then he walked, and it was so powerful the way he walked. And I'll never forget it. That was the defining moment for me, because I was like, wow, out of all the models I saw him, he booked the job. I ended up booking the job as well. But the thing is, when I saw him, I was like, I never forgot that moment, because I was like, his shoulders were back. He walked with presence. He walked with conviction. He walked to the end and he made eye contact with all 3. He wasn't afraid to look. And straight away they were like, yep, done. He's in. And from that moment on, I took that and I brought it into everything else that I do. Whenever I'm in a casting, whenever I'm meeting people, whenever I'm out in social situations, because I was defined a shy kid. I'm an introvert. People are like, well, how can you be an introvert when you're speaking on stages? But ultimately it's like, I like my own space. I like to keep to myself, but I can also come out when I need to coach people on stage. Man, I'm there. I'm not talking. I'm not thinking about what I'm looking like. I'm being present with that person. So the modeling taught me a lot about my confidence, man. And throughout the years, it took me from different country to country. Like I lived in LA, New York, and I'm talking some of the biggest shows. Like I was at another casting where 1,500 guys got casted, and they only chose 15. Wow. And I booked it the first time, and it was, again, reminding myself, who are you? How do you show up? How do you make eye contact? And I booked that show 2 years in a row, and they flew me from New York to LA, and we did the shows in Chicago, LA, San Francisco. And there was artists in there like Neo, there was Macy Gray. I had Sharon Stone auctioning off my outfit, and it was a full production. Like there was 3,000 people in the crowd. So it really taught me how to really trust myself, and it became so fun. And that's the best thing about that, is that when you can trust yourself and enjoy the process, and yeah, of course there's going to be nerves, but push through that. Wow, it's the best feeling in the world.
That's amazing, which is just such a great reason why why we should be talking about confidence for people, because had you not had that confidence, had you not recognized in that guy that level of certainty and conviction that you need when you are going after what you want, ultimately you're not fully invested. So, and I love what you said. You said confidence isn't loud and boisterous. It is something that when you need to, like you said yourself, you're an introvert, but when you need to, you'll step up with it. I think that's a key thing. Do you find, because I was going to ask you, what is the key, or what are some of the biggest challenges you see people facing who don't have confidence? I guess I'll get you to answer that first, but I just want to touch on the point, marrying back to what you said, where you just mentioned and touched on the fact that we don't need to be confident all the time. Do you feel like the challenge a lot of people have is that they feel that to be confident, they need to be on all the time?
Well, I don't feel like confidence is on all the time. I feel like confidence deep down is actually trust. Because sometimes there's going to be things that you're really good at.
Yep.
And you're like, I'm confident in that. Like I played basketball. I was really good at ball, but I was terrible at ice hockey.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But it's the thing is, I'd never practiced ice hockey. I wasn't interested in it. But ultimately, it's like confidence is the ability to trust yourself in certain situations and be okay with failing and learning from your mistakes. That's confidence. Like the most confident people out there are not going, I'm not going to try this because I'll fail. They're going, I'm going to try this and then I'll work it out along the way. And this is the thing. It's like with the difference between confident people is it's not that they don't have fear. We all have fear. It's what we make it mean about our fear. It's our relationship with fear. So fear comes and then you see it and you can either run from it or you can face it. And if you're the kind of person that's like, okay, I'm noticing my heart rate up, I'm noticing got sweaty palms, I'm noticing that this is really important to me, but I'm still going to be with it, then you've already won. That's confidence.
Wow.
And when you do it over and over again, you redefine, like every time you do it, it changes the way you look at it. You're changing your perspective. Oh, it's not my story anymore.
That's amazing. Love that. So when it comes to building confidence, is building confidence something we need to be practicing on a daily basis? Like, should we, no different to a workout or something, should we be having or practicing specific rituals that develop our confidence on a daily basis, like as something we develop, like no different to like a bicep muscle? You got to train the bicep and all that other, jazz. Should we be focusing on specific confidence training every single day? And what does that actually look like?
Well, absolutely. I think if you want to become confident in anything, you got to practice the skills. If you want to become a painter, you've got to practice painting. If you want to become a speaker, you got to practice speaking. If you want to be a great basketball player, you got to practice shooting. You got to practice the skills. You got to practice what you want to be confident in.
Yes.
And this is the thing. It doesn't just develop. It's something that can be worked on. Or some people have natural talent.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's like, if you want to be confident in anything, it's like, how many times do I want to practice this? And what do I make it mean when I fail? Now, there's a cycle that I like to teach in it. And the cycle I use is practice the skills first. Find out what the skills you need to practice is first, right? The second one is apply them effectively. The third part around the wheel is assess the results. So you check in, you go, okay, what is the results here? What can I do better? What's not working for me? What is working for me? How can I be more effective with this? So you assess it. And then on the fourth one, you say you modify as needed. So then you modify it and then you try it again. And I remember as a kid, like I played basketball, I wanted to be an NBA player. I had the ring up front of my house and I would shoot every night and I would practice from different angles and I would shoot with my left and I'd shoot with my right. And by under 12s, I was one of the first kids that was fluent in shooting both hands, like layups, left hand.
Wow.
Like I wanted to be able to have no limitations on how I played. So I was like, if I'm going to be the best, I got to practice. And I remember like putting putt plants around my house, doing shuffles and, I did everything in order to get to the best. And, it was great. And it taught me about discipline. It taught me about structure. It taught me about following through with what I'm dreaming about. And that's another thing that is confidence. You asked me the question before, like, what do people lack when they don't have confidence? And that is, one, they lack trust. They don't trust themselves. Two, they don't follow through with what they say. So ultimately, imagine this: every day you set the alarm for 7 a.m., but every day I press snooze. And what am I telling myself every time I do this? That I don't believe myself. Right? And if I don't believe myself there, then why am I even setting it? Because every time I say something, I don't actually follow through with it. And then guess what? Whenever I go to create a new goal and I don't follow through, all I'm telling myself is that I'm not worthy of the dream. That's telling my subconscious that I'm not good enough. That's telling me that I'm never, ever going to step out and create something that I want. I'm just going to settle for whatever is easy and what's in front of me.
Wow. Powerful, man. That's, yeah, so important to grasp. And I totally agree. Like where you said you got to become masterful and practice keeping commitments to yourself and have that integrity with yourself, because I you're so right. So much self-confidence stems from there when you just know you've got your own back. And
Absolutely.
you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And so would you say you've got to develop confidence on purpose? And what I mean by that is develop confidence with an intention in mind, but you need to develop confidence because of what it's going to get you. Because, correct me if I'm wrong here, but what I've noticed is people want to become more confident because they think they just need to be like what they're seeing in the world around them, which is so much, so much now on social media. There's so much comparison, people trying to be so much, but they're not trying to be anything specific. So
a lot of people think, a lot of people think confidence is, if I'm confident, then people will accept me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's fake it till we make it. And this is the thing with social media, is like so many people out there that are showing through pictures, like, look at me, I'm like this and this and that. And then you meet them in person, you're like, wow, you're nothing like your social media.
Wow.
And, this is the thing we get to do. We get to put this illusion out there of what we want people to receive us as.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And this is why social media can really distort your image of yourself, because if you're comparing yourself to someone else's false image, then you're going to always see, if you like, comparison literally is you're comparing to see if you are superior or inferior based on what you're comparing yourself to. And the moment you do that, if you're superior, great, I feel good about myself, I'm better than that person. But if you're inferior, and this is even how subtle it is, you look at their followers, you look at their comments, you look at their likes, you'll be like, okay, well, this person looks like they've got a lot of influence, they look like there's someone I should follow. We do it because we follow the crowd. So how many of us are really thinking for ourselves and going, does this really give me value? And then if you're inferior, guess what? Then you look at all the things that you're not.
Wow.
So confidence is, it's a funny thing, because people that are really confident don't need to be cocky. They don't need to be rude. They don't need to have this chip on their shoulder about, look at me. The most confident people I know are the most humble, kind, caring people. They're the people that will say hello first, that will smile first, without any intention.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. That's amazing. I love how you see comparison. When you compare, you're always putting someone down. It's either yourself or the other person.
Yeah.
But it's always that stacking. And that's a vicious circle. I love that. I love the way you said that. So I'm kind of guessing, and based on what you're saying, confidence really is, or lack of confidence comes from living outside your values. When you are trying to be something you're not, when you're expecting yourself to show up highly and on a high level outside of what you actually value. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. I think, when you're not confident and you're doubting yourself, it's because you're not listening to yourself. And what you're doing is you're paying attention to the doubts, you're paying attention to the limited beliefs that you have. And this is the thing. Anyone and everyone can develop confidence. But real confidence is being fully in alignment with yourself, being authentic to what you're hearing when you ask yourself that question, and having the courage to follow through. And when you do that, you trust yourself more and more. Like when you're in a relationship, if you're sacrificing yourself and you're betraying your own needs and your values for someone else's approval, what does that do to your self-esteem? It literally robs you. And if it robs you in that area, it's going to rob you in the next area, because everything is touching everything. I've gone through it myself, Nash, where, I was in a relationship and I literally betrayed myself. I betrayed my own values. I was constantly doing everything and anything to make sure my partner was happy. And I lost myself. And I lost a lot of my confidence, to the point where my friends were like, Emile, this is not you. And I couldn't recognize myself, to the point where I was literally doubting everything.
Wow.
And this is the thing I want your viewers to get, and your listeners, is that if you allow that in one area, it's going to leak into every other area. It leaked into how I played basketball. It leaked into how I modeled. It leaked into everything. I lost weight. And it broke me to the point where I was like, yo, I need to check in here. And I ended up seeing a positive psychologist, you know, and he taught me about, I did actually 2 sessions with him, and he was like, Emile, you don't need to come back anymore. You're figuring out everything you need to know. You just need to know what your values are. And from that moment on, I always live by my values. Because when the mind is getting to the emotional state where it's like, it becomes foggy and it doesn't know what decision to make because of fear, I check in, I go, what are my values? What do I need to action here?
Yeah.
What am I not listening to? And from there, it's like, and it becomes stronger and stronger and stronger, to the point where it's like, you make a decision and straight away your gut goes, ooh. And I'm like, okay, I got to pay attention to that.
Wow. I love it, man. That's so good. So when it comes to developing confidence, Emile, do you feel like there's a lot of information out there now? Do you feel like there's a particular piece of information that people should not be listening to, that you hear within the personal development space when it comes to growing yourself in any area, and especially your confidence?
Yeah, I think this whole nonsense saying, just keep positive, just stay positive. I hear it over and over, because I feel like we're human beings, we're not robots. And, you know, in order to understand your whole being, you have dark and light. We have negative and we have positive. We have tall and short. We have, you know, everything is an opposite. There needs to be. We have the sun and the moon. Like, we have to have the opposite in order to understand the difference. If I didn't understand what confidence is, I wouldn't understand what sadness is. I wouldn't understand what happiness is. I wouldn't understand what aggression is. Like, we need them all. All the emotions are necessary for us to understand. The difference is what we make it mean that creates a way of being.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're constantly trying to be positive, what you're doing is you're denying the negative parts of you. And if you're denying the negative parts of you, what you're doing is you're pushing down the self that needs to be supported and heard as well. If I'm constantly avoiding that voice that's saying, hey, I'm upset about this, I'm upset about that, and you're like, no, you don't have time for that. You gotta be positive. Just keep it smiling. You're not being authentic to yourself. And it's unnatural.
I totally agree. And so, in your opinion, how do you be negative effectively? Like, how do you feel that negative emotion? How do you navigate that? Or what does that actually look like, say, in your own life?
So, pure example, yesterday I woke up and I didn't feel good. Right? Now, I teach mindfulness and acceptance and commitment therapy. And what we teach in there is that every emotion is like the weather. And some days it's going to be raining, some days it's going to be sunny, some days it's going to be thunder, some days it's going to be unicorns and butterflies, right? But it's not always going to be like that. And instead of fusing with it and going, oh, I don't feel good, which I didn't feel good. I just woke up and I just naturally wasn't in a great mood. And I noticed it. So instead of fusing with it, I'm like, oh, I'm noticing I'm not in a great mood. Cool. And what's interesting is that I've got a lot of applications for this event, for Elevate. And I was like, I've got to call people. And in my head, I'm like, I'm not in the mood to speak to people right now and connect. And if I do this, then I'm purely coming from lack and not value. Because if I get on the phone and I'm like, I just got to do this, then I'm coming from doing and I'm not coming from being. And what I noticed is that I was like, okay, what do I need to do in order to fill my own cup again? And in that moment, I noticed like, okay, cool. I'm just going to sit with this and allow it and just be with it. And this is the thing. A lot of people don't like to be with negative feelings or emotions. So what they try to do is distract themselves, and they'll do it through social media. They'll do it through porn. They'll do it through alcohol, drugs, anything to distract them from actually experiencing what they're experiencing. Now, if you can learn how to be with your thoughts, feelings, and emotions all the time, you're not going to run from them. You're not going to avoid them. You're not going to hide from them. And by the time lunchtime here, I normally train in the morning, but I was quite tired that morning. So I just literally thought to myself, what's actually on my mind? And I just started writing down a list. And through that list, I just started working on those lists, not trying to get more clients, not trying to get more people in the applications, but just working on those lists that was my concerns. And once I worked through that list, I was like, okay, after this, I'm going to give myself a reward. I'm going to have a break. I'm going to go to the gym. And after I went to the gym, my mood shifted again. And by the time I came back, I was in a totally different mood. But do you see how I wasn't like, I'm negative. I can't do this. I could have gone down a whole spiral. I could have gone into lack and gone, oh my God, there's all these people waiting on these applications. I need to get them done. But it was purely, you're either coming from lack, fear, judgment, scarcity, or you're coming from the other side of creation, fulfillment, fun. That's what you're creating from inside. Totally. And you always need to check in and go, what am I creating from in this moment?
Awesome awareness. I love that. And I guess it goes right back to what I said at the start, where a great leader is someone who meets someone where they're at. And what you're doing there is great self-leadership, where you're meeting yourself where you're at and gently guiding yourself to where you need to go. And I think I'm most certainly guilty of having those days where I push through, you know, and you're so right. Like the results you get just don't feel right. Like you're creating from the wrong place. Out of desperation. It's like you're kind of clawing your way, and it just doesn't feel right. And what you create doesn't seem to actually resonate with people as well, I've noticed, when you're creating from that space. So love that point, mate.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let's talk about dealing with people's opinions around when you're going after your dreams. And I think you kind of touched on a few great ideas when you mentioned with your father before and the experience with him. But let's narrow it down even a bit more, Emile, and actually talk about what would be a perception people should have when someone comes to them and they start having an opinion about what they're doing, what someone's doing, you know, when they're really inspired to do something, because it's going to happen. I don't know a single person who doesn't have this. You just see some people deal with it better than others. How would you recommend people can develop a perception around dealing with that?
So I always use the second agreement. There's a book called The Fifth Agreement and by Dom LaGroix. And the first agreement is say only what you mean and mean only what you say. Use the word in truth and love only. So it's speaking with integrity. The second agreement is don't take anything personally, because nothing others say or do is a projection of you. It's a projection of them. That's the agreement I always use when people are trying to project their stuff onto me. I have to ask myself, what's the intent for them saying this to me? Is this true? And I have to trust myself enough to go, you know what? If I want to do this, I'm going to do this, no matter who's projecting it on me. It's nothing personal. Now, the biggest problem these days is we do take it personally. And we go, well, this person said I can't do it, so then I believe them. Right? And this is the thing these days. So many of us are listening to what other people say, and we don't listen to ourselves. We don't trust ourselves. We don't listen to what's actually being presented to us because of fear. Maybe they know better than me. Now, even as a coach, I will never, ever tell you the answer. Right? I'll ask you, what does your gut say? What's coming up for you? And then I'm teaching you how to trust yourself again. And, you know, it's happened to me many times. Like even when I first started coaching, my mum's a psychologist, and I said to my mum, you know, when I first started coaching years ago, I was like, Mum, I'm going to charge $100 an hour. And she's like, well, why would people come to you when they can go to a psychologist and get rebate? And I was like, well, I'm not a psychologist. And I took it personally because it was my mum, and I made it mean that I wasn't as good as a psychologist. Right? Now I was like, well, I'll show you. And so many of us that we can use it as fuel, or we can use it as like, or take it personally and go, you know what, I'm not going to do it. You're right. And I used it as fuel. And I went to work, and I got my first client. And then from there, the next client came, and then from there, the next client came. And it really taught me how to trust myself and not believe what people have to say, and just try and play and make a plan. Like, what are the skills I need to do in order to get to this level? Now, if you're looking to be confident and you guys are listening to this, I want you to find someone that has done it already. And I want you to write down, what are the traits that they have? And I need you to ask you this question. Who do you need to become in order to have what they have? What are the values you need to be practicing on a consistent basis? What do you need to be doing daily? Because it's what you do daily that makes up your whole genetic makeup.
Yeah.
Some people go, I've got this goal. And then like person A goes, I got this goal. And then person B goes, I got the same goal. And why does person A succeed and person B doesn't? And it really is their habits on a consistent basis and what they do daily. And the habit is also just not what you do on the physical, it's your thoughts. It's the thoughts that come in when you look in the mirror each day. What are you saying to yourself? That's a habit. What are you telling yourself you can't do? That's a habit. Every time you beat yourself up when you make a mistake, that's a habit.
Powerful, man. Very powerful indeed. So speaking of habits, what is one habit that you've developed in the past 2 years that has had a significant impact in your life?
I mean, it's longer than 2 years. I would say practicing my values and redefining. So the thing is, you can't just know your values. You have to ask yourself, how can I practice them every week? And if there's no action, there's no result. So this is one thing that I find myself really good at. And one of my values, like right now, it's health. Like even as if you're wondering what I'm drinking organic chicken bone broth.
Wow. Nice one.
Yeah. So every morning, like my health goal this year is to be the healthiest I've ever been. Right. And the reason why I say this is because the healthier I am, the more focus I have, the more energy I have to put back into my work, my clients, my lifestyle. I feel good. And if I'm feeling good, I'm creating 10 times more, and I'm not coming from lack. The body needs to move, right? Emotion is energy in motion. Now I move every day now. And now it's to the point where like I train 5 times a week, but I'm in such a routine where it's like, I'll wake up in the morning, I'll have my alkaline green powder, and it's got every type of green powder to alkaline the body. I'll wait about 15 minutes. I listen to personal development. And then from there, after that, I'll have my organic chicken bone broth. And then I'll go straight to the gym and train from 7 to 8. And then I'll come back and then I'm in work mode because I've already given myself great food, great nutrients. And then I have my superfood smoothie and I'm on point. Now, the reason why I say this is because health is one of my values. And that's how I'm asking myself this question: how can I be the healthiest I've ever been emotionally, physically, and mentally? And I'm like, well, if the moment I ask a how question, then I start looking at all the things I need to practice in order to become that value. I am healthy. I am courageous. I am in flow. I am consistent. Right?
That's awesome. So has health always been a value for you, Emile, or is that something you've actually chosen because you've been like, okay, this is where I want to go, and in order to get there, I need to have health as a value? Is that how you've done that?
I've always been healthy. I played basketball.
Yeah,
I was when I was a model, I was really on point with my gym, but it was the wrong reason. Like I was on point with my gym because I was getting paid to look good.
Okay. Yep.
And when I stopped modeling, what happened is I stopped working out because I was like, well, I'm not getting paid for it. Well, I need to do it. And I realized my energy went down. I wasn't in as much flow. And I mean, I do yoga as well. And boxing. So I like to add in different elements to keep my mind guessing and not the same. And when I got that, when I stopped training, that it affected everything else, I was like, I don't want to, like, I'm 36 years old. I want to keep going. Like, I want to keep hacking, you know? And it's like, I really defined what health meant again. And by redefining it was, again, if I'm healthy, I'm going to be the best version of myself. And if I'm the best version of myself, then I can show up for my clients. And if I want to be playing at an 8 or a 9 or a 10, then I'm going to have to show up as a 9 and 10. If I'm going to match the frequency that I'm attracting in my business with my events. And this is why we get great results, because I tested on myself. And there's days where I'm like, I'm so tired, I don't want to do this, but I have to consistently remind myself. And like today, I'm going to go to gym after this, but I was like, I didn't want to wake up and go straight to gym. I was like, it's Saturday, calm it down a bit, just take it easy, slow it down a bit. And that's okay, you know, but it's still in alignment with my health.
Fantastic, mate. So, so much I want to talk to you about it, mate, but I'm going to be respectful of your time. Let's talk about, well, this is obviously the Thoughts on Purpose podcast. And I named this podcast that because, first of all, I believe everyone has a purpose on earth. And I wanted to talk to amazing individuals who are living out what they believe is their purpose in life. And also I wanted to provide strategies so people can take care and direct their thoughts on purpose. So, Emile, I asked this question to all my guests. Do you believe everyone on earth has a purpose? Are we all here for a purpose?
I do think so. And it doesn't need to be massive and it doesn't need to be huge. But I believe that everybody has a purpose. And when they really ask themselves these questions, you know, if they follow through with what they're listening, what they hear, and have the courage to do so, that most people will be so much more happier. I feel like a lot of people don't listen to their gut and they don't trust it and they just settle. And I feel like the more people, and this goes back to also, like, somebody asked me the other day in an interview, do you think people are lazy? And I said, I don't. I said, I think people don't understand their why and they don't understand their purpose and they don't listen and trust themselves fully. And because of that, what we're doing is we're living this mediocre life based on these limiting beliefs. But the moment you have purpose and in alignment, and you're in alignment, you have 10 times more energy. You want to get up and you want to do the thing. Like I get up and I have energy because I'm in alignment with what I do. And I'm not forcing it. It's just, and there's sometimes where you're like, oh my God, like last night I was working till 11:30 on Friday night. And then I woke up today and I was like, I'm gonna sleep in a bit, but I was like, I wasn't even mad at it because I'm in alignment with my vision and I have a dream and a goal and it's enjoying the process along the way as well. So I fully believe that everybody has a purpose. They just have to uncover it.
Yep. Totally. I totally agree. Fantastic. So we've got a couple of fun questions now. Just, these are very light, I guess, just so people get to know you and can connect with you on another level as well. So what is an app that you absolutely love that you've got on your phone right now?
I have an app that I've used for the last 3 years. It's called One Giant Mind, and it's a meditation app that I give all my clients. And I still, like, I've been training meditation and I still use this app.
One Giant Mind.
And I get One Giant Mind. Yeah. Okay. So I give this to most of my clients, and it's just a great app to get you into a space where it's like a regular meditation. Like like Johnny's my meditation teacher. He's the one that created the app.
Okay, cool.
And it's just a simple way to really allow your thoughts to come in and out without judging them. And this is the thing with mindfulness meditation. It's like the suffering is not your thing. Is your podcast is what, Thoughts on Purpose, right? The problem is not the thought. It's what you make it mean about having that thought that creates suffering.
Yes.
And if we can learn how to let go of our thoughts, because we have 60,000 to 80,000 a day, and allow those thoughts to come in and out, then we are going to be so much more happier in ourselves instead of trying to control them.
Very powerful, man. I love it. So what is your favorite type of music?
Ooh, So I got a killer playlist on Spotify. Music is like, music for me is, it's how I feel.
Yep.
It connects me. I love listening to words. I like R&B. I love old school, funk.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm an old soul too. Like I love the Al Greens. You know, but for me, it's like music that has real depth to it,
Mm-hmm.
and that
Mm-hmm.
soul feeling. It's like, for me, it's like I play music all the time. Like I have a Bose speaker literally behind me,
Yep.
and when I'm working, I've got my playlist. And the beautiful thing about music is that it gets you into a rhythm and it gets you to move. And when you can move, you're moving emotion.
Yep. So true.
So I make sure I have a playlist for gym. I have a playlist for when I'm working. I have a meditation playlist and visualization playlist. I have different categories because I feel like it's so imperative to a person.
I think that one practice, if people started doing that alone, would have such a significant impact in their lives. I totally agree. Like the power of music is amazing.
If your guests, if they have trouble waking up in the morning, get them to make a playlist.
Yes. Yes.
And as they wake up to the playlist and get them to move a little bit, even if it's 5 minutes, it makes such a difference. And you adding gratefulness to that, the recipe for happiness.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I was going to actually ask you what one little challenge we can give people as a result of watching this. And I think that would be a good thing to give people as a little practice. What do you reckon?
Awesome. Yeah, I think it was I think you always start with the smaller, like if you're trying to develop a habit in anything, always make it as easy as possible. So if just say you want to go, I want to become fitter and I want to do 200 push-ups in a day. Start with 5 push-ups. Make it as easy as possible. And then after the first week of you doing 5 push-ups every single day, next week you do 10. And the week after that, you do 15.
Yep.
And you develop it. You don't have to go massive. You just have to define it, and you have to be better, 1% better than the day before.
Love it, man. Remove the friction.
Yeah.
Spot on. So Emile, you've shared so much information. Like I said, I could just deep dive with you on so many topics, and maybe we'll have to chat again in the future. But what I'd love to do is, how can people connect with you? How can people get amongst what you've got going on? How can they check out your events, your Elevate events coming up in Bali, and get amongst what you've got going on?
So you can find me on Emile Steenveld on Instagram. Same thing on my Facebook, and just connect with me there or DM me. And then if you're looking to connect for the Elevate event, you can either DM me or go to www.elevatetribe.net/Bali event.
Beautiful. And we'll put some links below this video wherever you're watching or listening to this, all to Emile's awesome work. And, Emile's hosting these events with Joel Brown, who's been one of my own personal mentors, and Joel's an incredible force as well. So you guys together are just an absolute powerhouse, and you've got some incredible guests. Who are your guests at this upcoming event, Emile?
So at the next event, we have Geraint Jones. And what's funny, Nash, is that Geraint and I used to model together 12 years ago.
Oh, really? Oh, I had no idea he was a model.
He was a model and a singer. And what was funny is that we were going through the recession and we were waiting tables together.
Wow.
All right. Now Geraint has created a multi-million-dollar company with Herbalife, and he speaks on hundreds of stages around the world. And he teaches on transformational work and mindset. And this is what's so dope about this, is that we're coming back together like 12 years later and doing what we love in full alignment.
Wow.
We also have Jen Hardy from Scotland, and she's a boss, literally. She's been married for like 19 years. She's got 3 kids. She's wrote a book called How to Be Unstoppable. She's really phenomenal. And the reason why we choose these speakers, it's not just about the speakers, it's about people that know how to coach as well, because it's all good giving inspiration and telling you, okay, yeah, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, and you get pumped up. But we're more about transformation at this event. It's about giving you the practical tools to step into your life and action them on a consistent basis. And this is why we actually, all the people that come to our event, we have to go through an application process and we interview them. for that reason. And this is why we get the results, because most of the, like literally everyone that gets into the Elevate event, they're ready to jump.
Yeah. It's full immersion. Full immersion.
It is.
Yeah, like I said, you've created some amazing clips from it. People can check those clips out at the resources and you know, by following the links you provided, and really get a taste for what they can expect if they choose to step into that. Very exciting, Emile. So, mate, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I know you're a busy man and you've got lots of things on the go. So thank you for being here. Thank you for the way you show up. And thank you for having me. Oh, my pleasure, man. Absolute pleasure. So last question, Emile. What does a great life mean to you?
A great life means to me is to be fully in alignment with your values, doing what you love, and having the relationships around you that are meaningful.
Fantastic, mate. Yeah. Emile, thank you so much for your time, brother. Appreciate you, mate.
Thanks, mate.